Well done to the two young captains. First game, Tommy Dearden and Harry Grant both got a. They were fantastic. Tom Dearden, something we know. I mean, Harry Grant speaks for himself, but something really special about Tom Dearden. The Cowboys, fit, fast, and focused, and I think Jeremiah Nanai is a really great indicator of them. The fact that the quality of their pre-season and the desire within the camp, I think, came through with Nanai.
Yep, they were the biggest exclamation marks for me on the weekend. They impressed me. I didn't have the Cowboys in my 8, right? But I've got them pushing top 4 after that performance. I think they are back from what they did 2 years ago now, that prelim final, and finished 3rd, I think they did. Whatever happened last year where they got beaten by 60, the Tigers, and then a couple of weeks later they beat them by 60. That is way too different for Todd Payton's liking. Yeah. And I think they look sharper. I think they look like they've got that power game through the middle of McLean, Taumalolo, Cotter. Dearden, Drinkwater look sharp.
Very sharp.
And I like what their back rowers have. Like Nane, Fini Fuaki, you've got Lukey there. Like they are straight up and down.
Cotter.
Like, they are straight up and down line runners with a nice late footwork, and they will complement what Dearden and Drinkwater do.
Well, the year before, everybody for the season sort of had a look and went, Cowboys are a dark horse here, and then win the comp. It was a World Cup year. A lot of those players, like Murray Tuolangi and Nanai and so on and so forth, all came back late. Yep. You know, where the year before they had a good season, they were talking about, you know, they were running up that hill in Townsville and they were rock hard fit. I think they've returned to the hill.
Yeah, I agree. And the plus thing on that is Drinkwater has just got this X factor that you need sometimes in a football team to win comps. Like he's got it in spades.
Troops, Cowboys are 3-0. But there's elements of their football which I think will be concerning Toddy Payton. Periods in their win over the Dragons, their win over the Dragons, the energy just completely went out of their football, particularly defensively. There's a few examples which you see. Firstly, the Zach Lomax try. It was down the Cowboys' left-hand edge, and defensively there was some really poor lazy decision making, and then Zach Lomax goes across the try line. Rather than keep him in the corner, they just let him saunter around under the post. I thought, the Sloan try, his try soon after. There was only 4 players at half field. They were over the other side of the field, not pushing across and helping their mates. The Cole Flanagan try. It was well done to Cole, but it was it was fundamental defensive error. And then there was one in the second half too. And it's just a little thing. Because I think kick chase and things like kick harassment sort of measure where a team, what mood they're in. And Kyle Flanagan got the ball after half time and he's about to put a kick in, then goes, hang on a second, and just keeps wandering another 10 metres and puts in whatever kick he wants. They're the things that worry me about the Cowboys.
So do you worry enough that it's a false reading of them, that they're 3 wins, top of the ladder?
Coops, I don't view it as a false. I like the talent's there. They've got the player there. They've got the roster. I just wonder, okay, what's that attitude about? Is it, don't tell me you're becoming one of those teams that go, that's all right, we'll get a lead and we'll just run you down later on. Because there were elements of that in the Newcastle game. They were really poor in the first half. Then they ran them down and won the game. But if they keep getting into that habit, it'll start to form like we've seen with South Sydney.
Yeah, I'm going to put a lot of faith in the Cowboys. I think they are legitimate this year. And yes, they've beaten some teams that probably aren't going to be really high up on the ladder. But listening to Scott Drinkwater talk after the game, he is a smart footy player.
He's spoke very well.
He spoke about the 4 tries that they conceded. He knew exactly what went wrong. He knew the player that did wrong. He knew exactly how to fix it and said it won't happen again. And we see all this beautiful play, speed, long pass, this risk versus reward type style from Scott. But if your fullback thinks about that's how the game was won and lost, I think you've got a good mindset there.
Well, I'll ask you then, Coops, because Drinky sometimes he can symbolise the Cowboys. You'll see.
Well, he was flighty early on in his career, flighty.
And even there's been on the weekend he did a couple of things, and you're going, like Toddy Payton must be up in the box going, come on, Drinky, focus. But then in the next set of 6, he'll do something just completely brilliant.
Yeah, because he was at the Melbourne Storm and he was in and out and loved playing the up-tempo style and throwing passes left, right. But when it came to the defensive side of the game, like, it was a second thought. But he's seen him speak and the way that he's developed his game, I think that's a hell of a player that the Cowboys can build and put a lot of trust in. So, yeah, I get those examples of the tries and I was like, oh, what's going on here? This is like literally a shootout between the Dragons and the Cowboys for the first half. And the Dragons butchered that one try. The Cowboys go down the other end, they get in front, and then they run away with it, right? So there was a moment there. But I've got faith in them. I think they look like they're going to be a big team this year, the Cowboys.
See, the thing about it is too, like we oftentimes, we talk mainly about tactics here, and you can look sometimes and you say, oh, mate, they've really got to adjust that focus. This side probably needs another creative player.
Yep.
When it comes down to things like with talented football sides, like attitude, I think sometimes within the sides you go, oh yeah, that's just an attitude problem, we'll fix that. But as we've seen in the past with certain sides, is that the longer it goes on, the harder it is to fix, Coops.
Yeah.
And that the only thing that worries me, and like I think the Cowboys are absolutely capable of winning this title.
Yep.
Very, very talented young football side. And they look fit this year. But there's just elements of their football that we saw last year where they got them off to a slow start.
Yep.
That's little bits of carelessness that weren't there the season before.
Yep.
Watching the side, if it's Penrith are going for 4 in a row, if it's not Penrith, is there anyone out there you're watching through the sides and you go, yeah, they're likely?
I like Cowboys. Obviously, I don't think that at that level of your Penriths in big games yet. But they play a bit ad-lib, don't they? With the Drinkwater there, obviously did. And I think Jimmy Maloney's up there. And I don't know, he'd probably claim all the success up there at the moment. But I honestly feel like he's rubbed off on them because they're playing more free.
Has he got the ponytail?
He's had that hair for 2 years.
It's unbelievable. It's like comic book guy in Simpsons.
It's funny, like you called it here last week. You were worried about the Cowboys' defence.
That's
against the Dragons, there was soft tries conceded, right? Yeah. And I said, no, I think they're good. Like, I like their attack. It's pretty set. But on the weekend against the Broncos, their defence let them down.
You could see the loss coming.
Yep.
Because, like Mitch, 2 years ago when they played, not a lot was expected of the Cowboys, and suddenly they had this big surge. Final 4 season, really good. But what they majored on was, I think, how they viewed themselves is a little bit like the way Canberra do, is they were gritty and they were tough and they'd outlast. And the following year, like last year, they just got thrown off balance by a little bit higher expectations, you know. And when you're a young player, suddenly you're in the paper all the time. Lots of things, you know, worked out at World Cup year, didn't have as good a preparation. Where this year, watched them early on that first game where, hey, they're rock hard fit and they're back, but there's still that element of last year in their football.
Yeah.
You know, from 1 minute to the next, from one set to the other, it can just be black and white. So different. They're at the moment a side of too much extreme.
They're flighty.
Cowboys, Madge. Yeah. Finally, when you talk about all the smoke, I love watching the Cowboys play. And in fact, we had Scotty Drinkwater and Tommy Dearden on the show Sunday night, mate. They're just such. I love them both as players. I think Dearden's going to develop into an amazing captain, but they're a frustrating side, given the fact that they open the field up so beautifully with the football, but defensively they can't shut it. And we had a discussion before about, certainly the best side I ever played against were the '94 Raiders. And they could open the field up like no other side, but then when they handed the ball back to you, they beat the shit out of you. And that's, I think, where the Cowboys are lacking. Just that, I want to see some nil scorelines.
Yeah, well, it's the ability of your medals and how the medal can move. I think that's something there that people don't really see. I mean, I use someone like Fisher Harris and Moses Leota. The way they can move defensively to be able to put themselves in a tackle but then get back in the line, it fills the line. So that then gives you the ability to be able to thicken up your defensive line to stop what's coming.
As far as it's going to be toughest for, of course, the Broncos, but the Cowboys. Going to put a big dent in the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Dearden, Nenai, Robson, Tulangi, Val Holmes.
Yeah, and they're not exactly at the level they want to be at too. But their season this year has reflected a lot of things that they did last year. And if we go back to last year, it was a real circuit breaker for the Origin period. Their Origin stars were sort of in and out of form. They went to Origin, played great. Ruben Cotter was the best example of it. They all came back, and the Cowboys got the season back up and running, but ran out of gas. So it could be the thing that the Cowboys' best players need. But I think Tom Dearden has been sensational for them. Like, he has been top 3 players every week for the Cowboys. This whole captaincy thing, he's really taken on board, and he's playing really well. That's why he was a walk-up for Munster's jersey.
Okay, let's talk about week-to-week football.
Yep.
Most impressive team of the round just passed.
You know what? I'm going to give the Cowboys in their second half. Like, it was very, very good. Well, they down 14-4, half-time they come out, and they turned the tables like with their kicking game and field position, and really tapped the Roosters out. They made some poor errors, the Roosters.
Yep.
But they scored a try with one of their players in the bin, the Cowboys. I think Drinkwater was tremendous.
Again.
And I just like the fact that the Cowboys didn't try and win it with one big play. They got back into the grind, forced the Roosters out, and wind our clock back. They did the same thing this time last year.
Yeah, right.
They got their season back on track with their Origin players, and they came back in.
Isn't it funny? Like, the Warriors and the Cowboys have found their best football when their stars have been out.
Yep.
It's almost like they've pulled things back a little bit. I reckon
Newcastle did it for a period of time until the weekend.
Yep. Dogs on the weekend. I'll talk about the Dogs in a second. But I reckon it's almost like Todd Payton went, listen, boys, if we're going to win this, we're not going to win on attack and brilliance. We just got to dig in. We've got to defend well. And they found their best foot. Toddy Payton, big call, dropping Chad Townsend, brought in Jake Clifford.
Honest opinion, what did you think of it before it happened?
I applaud him for it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why. Because something had to change in that football side. Whatever it was, they're a very hard side to follow. They've been really inconsistent. Something had to change.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it for a couple of reasons, because it was such a poor performance in that second half the week earlier at home. You can't go and drop 6 guys for not doing their bit, right? And defensively, Townsend hasn't been up to scratch. And the fact is, if you want to influence 5 or 6 people to improve, just go to the big halfback and drop him, particularly when you've got a younger halfback with younger legs, better kicking game, more of a running threat, and apparently has been carving it up in reserve grade. So I liked it before it, and I liked it for his performance on the weekend too, because he looked very comfortable.
I was so happy for him. He's a terrific young bloke, Jake Clifford, and his story, he came through, for people that don't know, at the Cowboys, sort of earmarked. Here comes this young guy coming through, almost the guy who's going to replace Thurston. Whatever reason, it just didn't turn out that way. He looks like a bloke. He's a very nice young bloke, and a lot of times, blokes like Jake can be rather sensitive young fellas. Went to Newcastle, played some good football here and there at Newcastle. I don't think he was treated particularly well there. Right. I think there was a few things going on. Anyway, he left there and he went to Hull. How many times have we said on this?
Yeah.
There is a history of people who go to the north of England and come back.
Particularly halves. Like, strangely enough, halves.
Yeah, playmakers. Gavin Miller was the same. They go there to different style of football. They're just out of the spotlight a little bit, a little less pressure, and they come back. And for him to come into the side, like as you said, he's been carving up. He just looks a different bloke. He's come back a more mature player. My thing with Jake is, if I had to give him some advice, is Jake, don't get in the way of yourself. Right? Have the discipline to have no more self-doubt. Because, mate, he can play. He showed that in the weekend. Mate, the blueprint is there for him. That's how you play football.
I think the other bit of advice is, don't get caught up in all the cool try-scoring line breaks, that kind of flick-passy stuff. The reason why he was brought in instead of Townsend is the basics. Townsend's defence wasn't up to scratch. Jake Clifford's a good, strong defender, no issues on the weekend. His kicking game is a younger leg. It's bigger and more effective. But then he also ran the footy. So that's the thing. It's a building blocks of halves. Don't go straight to how many tries can I score or set up. Go straight to the hardest part of the game: defence, kicking, and run the footy.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, Coops? If you're playing in the halves, you're a playmaker, and you've got size, and you're a really good runner of the football. Geez, what an advantage that is, simply because it enables you to get the ball, have a look up the defence. Don't really like what I see, I'm just going to take them on. So it doesn't matter. Like, you can play as simple as you want and you're still going to be a threat.
Since I can't explain this, but since 1908, the beginning of rugby league, if you concentrate on the hard parts of the game like your defence, some reason why your attack helps, right? But if you concentrate on attack, it does not help your defence, because I think it is being in an aggressive mindset. Particularly if you're a half, you're in an aggressive mindset to tackle or run the ball, you're in a better frame of mind to step, move, take the line on, see things a little bit more clearly. And then a flick pass comes out the back door.
Isn't defence is any when a side is in the mood to defend, it just says everything about their attitude.
It was a good bounce back from the Cows.
Yeah, it was.
It was an impressive. And we've seen this 1,000 times where they deliver you a really good performance and then they drop off.
A bludger.
Yeah. Did you see the Cowboys' performance on the weekend?
Yep, classy.
Wow. Yeah. It was a statement in my mind that I had question marks around the Cowboys, and then they delivered that, and I'm thinking, holy hell, if they can do that again for the month, they could just be a team.
Coops, but through this season, I've
done
thought that 4 or 5 times.
We've done this, yes. Yep.
4 or 5 times I've gone, wow, here come the Cowboys, and then boom.
Yep. Their defensive intent on the weekend, through the example of Cotter, was tremendous.
I love Cotter as a player.
And then Dearden's direct style and the way that he ran the football forced everyone else to follow him.
Yep.
So I think their leadership is key to how the Cowboys go.
Let's talk about next week at Allianz. I love that. Both games at Allianz. It takes me back to the 1990s, early 90s, when they had the major semi-final. People would descend from all over Australia to go there.
Yeah, need a big crowd for the Sharks, Cows. I think the Roosters Manly will be big.
Yep. I think so. Sharks, Cowboys. Where do the Cowboys sit, Coops?
Oh, they were so good again on the weekend. But we've said this 1,000 times. I could not sit here honestly and say I know what the Cowboys are going to deliver on the weekend. But I will say this. I think what I liked from the weekend of the Cowboys is when there was a moment, the Cowboys players were there. There's just a couple of moments that I feel like the Cowboys players are putting their jersey in the picture. And I think this comes down to styles of Sharks versus the Cowboys, because they both play a very similar style. If they want to go east-west too quick, then I think the opposition might get a chance. So the one thing that Cowboys have over the Sharks at the moment is the Cowboys' spine is playing really good footy.
Playing really good.
Yep.
Geez, I like Dearden.
Yeah.
He's gutsy. Just back on cold.
He's not east and west.
No.
He's straight up and down.
Who wins that game? Sharks, Cowboys. What do you reckon, mate?
I think the Cowboys are probably the favourites here. I don't know if I'm out of my mind saying this, but I'm going to go the Sharks. And
they're the favourites.
I'm going to say Sharks. I'm going to say Craig Fitzgibbon has them breathing fire, and I'm going to double down on Nico. I'm going to double down on Nico.
Yeah.
I'm doubling down. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge off-season for Fitzgibbon, Sharks, and Nico.
Yeah.
They lose this again.
Yeah. That'll be 8 finals games in a row.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think Sharks. I'm backing them to get it right.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Both of these sides, I think, have been the most difficult sides to get a read on all season, and both sides, quite often, a great performance is followed by a bludger, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So
they
if you
respond
follow on
pretty
that,
well. Yeah. It's almost like the poor performance makes them focus in on the simple things that make them a good footy team.
Yeah. Cowboys season. Well, I mean, whatever we just said about Manly, just.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I love it when the Cowboys come out and they play fast. But eventually, sometimes through the game, you've got to tickle the brakes. You've got to slow the tempo. You've got to frustrate the opposition. You've got to be able to do both. And they just can't seem to do the second.
It's almost like just at times they lack the concentration or the focus to do things defensively.
Yeah.
They put a lot of effort into their attack, but they don't back it up with that grunt defensively. They have origin players throughout their list. Like, they should be a team that should have done better. What is it, 2 years ago, that prelim final?
Yeah.
I firmly believe that they should have been knocking on the door for prelim.
When they lost by a fraction in that prelim, Parramatta knocked them over. I thought the next year, this young playing group, watch them go. They pushed off balance, similar to the Broncos, not to that extent, but similar philosophies. And then so I thought, okay, this will be the year they correct. they've had a better season, but they're still bedeviled by the same problems.
Yep, and they changed leadership. They went with Dearden and Cotter, which I really like. Like, Dearden was their best player.
Yep.
Even both sides of the football, his competitiveness defensively and his arrow straight attack. He'll be a captain for a long time there, but like, I just think they should have done better the last couple of years. And it's not attack. They don't need to do anything better attack. They are elite.
It's Manly. It's defence.
It's defence. Yep.
Like Lukey at the end there. He's going to, all things considered.
I like their back rowers, like Nane and Lukey. Like, if you're a half, if you Drinkwater or Dearden, to have athleticism, toughness, and skill with their footwork, it's a dream.